Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of The Right Side with Doug Billings. A quick shout out to a friend of the show, the Commander's Artist. He got started doing some work for the president, therefore the name Commander's Artist. But he's also become good friends of not only this program, but he's a good friend of General Michael Flynn's. And you ought to check out this guy's artwork. Go to his website, www.thecommandersartist.com, and check this out. Look at this stuff that I'm showing you. It's incredible. The patriotism, the quality, the uniqueness of these prints is astounding, and you can have one. Imagine one framed in your home or your den, in your study, or in your studio, like this. They're beautiful, and you really do need to check him out. A personal friend of General Mike Flynn's, a personal friend of this program, thecommandersartist.com. And when you go to checkout, make sure you enter the coupon code DOUG, D-O-U-G, that's me. You get a little discount from the Commander's Artist when you do that. The coupon code is Doug. Check out this website. Check out the artwork. Patriotism galore. And it's really, really cool, good quality stuff. Top shelf, as they say. TheCommandersArtist.com. Cheers. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this edition of The Right Side with Doug Billings. A really big day for us here on the program. General Michael Flynn is going to join us. And ladies and gentlemen, it's important that you watch this entire interview. The general will give us specific hope, specific avenues forward, and we'll talk about some of the things that you've heard me mention before on this program: determined prayer, determined patriotism, doing the hard work in the wake of what happened in America on November 3rd, the election and so forth, and how to live in the reality of a world without President Trump in the presidency. How to go forward. We'll talk about what needs to be done with regards to Republicans, and we'll speak candidly about that. We'll speak candidly about ways to go forward with specific detail, but you'll hear it from the general himself. A very important interview. He's not been on many media platforms lately, and we're happy to be the first on which he has appeared in recent weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, right here on The Right Side with Doug Billings, General Michael Flynn. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. A really big day for us here. It is our high honor to have General Michael Flynn with us on today's program. General Flynn, thank you, sir, for taking the time to be with us here on The Right Side.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doug, and thanks for you and all that your audience gets out of you. I think on a daily basis, the message that you have for the entire country. It's a terrific message, and I'm really honored to be on the show with you.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. You know, it's because of a mutual friend of ours that I was actually connected with you. Michael, the artist, the Commander's Artist. He's a friend of yours, and he's done some work for you. He's designed the logos on this show, and the Commander's Artist he's a great guy, isn't he? He speaks very highly of you.
Now, Michael is a terrific American patriot, and if anybody, I hope that you will promote his website and him. He does the artwork that he does is very, very patriotic. And one of my sort of big things with Michael is Michael came into my life through this political persecution journey that my family and I went through, and he stepped up in a big way to help us raise some money for our legal defense. And Michael and I have become very good friends, and he's a terrific, faithful man, and I love him.
Wonderful. And yes, we will definitely, prior to our interview, when this thing airs, there will be a big promotion for Michael and his website. He's a friend of the show, and he's spoken highly of your faith and how you connected during that persecution in the moment of darkness. And I think you brought light and hope into each other's lives. I just thought that was a great story.
Yeah, and Mike is a guy, and like I have said in other venues, Doug, the American people, instead of running away from the Flynn family, they ran toward us in a moment of really deep faith for us. And it became something that was so important that now, as I reflect back on all this, I really do feel a responsibility to say thank you in as many venues as I can possibly leverage, to thank the American public for what they did and standing by the Flynns, myself, our country, and what we believe in. And frankly, like I said, it was a persecution unprecedented in history, and it should never happen to anybody else again in this country. But, we'll see what happens as the country goes forward, as our justice system comes under an enormous amount of scrutiny by the American people, now that the American people are awake, and as our rule of law must be returned in some way. I don't know if that's going to be the case, Doug, but I will tell you that in my fiber, in my body, I will work toward that end to help people who are being persecuted because the justice system seeks prosecutions instead of justice. And I think that we have to check that incentivized system that is not right. It's just not right.
General, I couldn't agree more. And before I get into the actual question, I need to just ask, how are you, sir? How is your family during all of this? You all holding up? I know that on this show, I can tell you, sir, that we get messages from around the world, and there are millions of people who have been looking forward to hearing this interview and are in your corner. They are with you and your family. Are you okay? Is everybody, marching forward and doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing. I mean, the things that I like to talk about with all these people that are not only in the United States of America, but around the world. And I think we've tried to track these people, and I've tried to send thank you notes to as many people as I can possibly send them to. And it's upwards of about 20 countries around the world that I'm aware of, and every state in this union that people have reached out to us. But I bring it down to three things, and that's faith in God, the strength of my family, and then the real trends that came into our lives during this journey. We're strong. I tell people that we are a resilient bunch in Flynn family, and that also includes my wife's family. My wife and I have been together since we were 13 years old. So we know what loyalty means. We know what fighting through the objective, so to speak, means. Yep. There's nothing that's going to stop us from talking about our values and the values that we believe in. We're going to be fearless about our patriotism to this country, and I would say going forward that the American people our need, and we know we have a responsibility to go around this country and as much as we can to all those people outside of the borders of the United States that supported us, to say thank you to them. And I would also offer, Doug, that a lot of people come up to me and they say, we're so sorry for what happened to you. And I tell people right away, don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for the president of the United States country. The way that people inside of our bureaucracy attacked our presidency, meaning they attacked the American people. And they used me as maybe one of their conduits. And we know for a fact from, the exculpatory evidence, which is a new phase that every American has learned about exculpatory evidence, that one of the senior FBI agents that was involved said the whole effort was to get Flynn to get Trump. That was what the entire effort was about. So they could basically purge Donald Trump before he even had a chance to be the president. And once he was the president, then they had to get Flynn out because they knew what I knew and where I came from. So, I mean, I'm on my soapbox right now, Doug, but I will tell you, the people that are watching your show, the one message that I would say to them is do not lose hope and do not give up, because we're not. The Flynns are not going to give up.
Excellent. And I want to get to that hope during the course of our chat here together. And we will get there. Where General Flynn, with regards to your current state of mind, with regards to the American Republic between November 3rd and today, where's your head? Where is your sense of hope? What can we do There are too many to number the amount of people who were hopeful that something may have happened, that Trump could have won, obviously. And I know that we can get into the election, and I think that ought to be our number one priority, is to fix the election problem this country has. Where is your head with regards to the future of the country as it stands now?
Well, here's what I tell people, that let's just use the number 70 million. All right. So 70 million people stood in line to vote for Donald Trump. And most of those actually stood in line. They didn't come in through mail-in ballots and such that we all learned about. So let's just say 70 million people stood in line and voted for Donald Trump in an unprecedented way. And I mean, numbers that before in our history. And so what the next stage of life is for those 70 million is really to now decide to not only get in line to vote, but get in line to volunteer and go to your precincts, go to your local townships, go to your counties, get in. And many of this stuff is, much of the stuff is volunteer stuff. We have got to reassure ourselves, and we have got to reassure America that we can actually have a free, fair, and transparent election. But the only way to do that is not just by voting, it's by getting involved. And some of that is volunteer stuff, but it has to be involved at every single level. So I am going to go around, I'm going to ask people to do that. I'm going to do that myself. And I'm going to get involved where I can get involved, and I'm going to encourage people in this country to get involved in the election process. I stood for almost 34 years in the military, 5 of those years in combat. And I know the millions and millions of people that have sacrificed their lives in the history of this country to fight for that particular privilege that we have. And so it's no longer just about standing in line and voting. We now have to get much more involved. And I would also add, Doug, that there are people, because I've spoken to at least a dozen of them, that are out there thinking now about running for office. And running in particularly in these cases, running in congressional districts the next time around in 2022, right? So they're praying, should they run? They're talking to their families, they're talking to their communities. They need, and I would ask them, and I'm going to encourage them to do that. And whether that's a congressional seat, whether it's a Senate seat, whether it's a gubernatorial seat, I mean, people are going to have to step up, even if it's at the local town council or the local county, supervisor. People need to step up, and I'm going to ask that. I'm going to keep saying that, and you're going to get sick of hearing me say it, but need people to do.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, local, school boards, even, with all of that. And I agree with you completely. I've called on this program the 2 ways forward for the conservative movement, at least: determined prayer coupled with determined patriotism. Determined prayer, I think, is obvious to most of us, but determined patriotism, meaning that we do the hard work of patriotism. There is not going to be a quick fix to the debacle that we see ourselves in now with regards to the disarray and the new left party. I don't even call them Democrats anymore. I call them commie socialists. But don't you think that we as conservatives need to march forward with determined patriotism, to your point?
Yes. So the short answer is absolutely 100% correct. The more defined way for us to be thinking about moving forward is, and you're right about what is the sort of the opposing political ideology that we are now seeing, in our face, that's happening on the in the streets of America today. And that, I grew up as a Democrat. I grew up as I would call it a Kennedy Democrat, right? Somewhere between Providence, Rhode Island, and South Boston. The area, that neck of the woods, that part of the country. When in the 60s, my parents, I'm one of 9. I'm an Irish Catholic family, part of an Irish Catholic family. Grew up as staunch Democrats. The Democratic Party of that era is really what the Republican Party values are of this era. So there's been the transfer of ideas with many of them being very similar, and in the the sort of the realm of libertarianism, conservatism, not socialism or Marxism. And we are facing, and I wrote about this a while back, Doug, and maybe I'll send you the article and maybe you can link it. But I wrote about, and I used the phrase, 2% of the passionate will defeat 98% of the indifferent 100% of the time.
Yep.
If people remain indifferent, they go, well, somebody else's job, then the percent of the passionate will always beat us. And that 2% right now is in the left. And they are strong, powerful, well-organized, well-funded, and they are in your face. What we have to do is we have to fight back with better ideas, but we have to stand our ground. I always talk to these groups that I talk to sometimes. There's a lot of people that sit and talk, and they sit and talk a lot. What people now have to do is they have to stand and do. And that doing means that, like I talked about earlier, but it also means get involved.
Yeah.
And if you have a family, and women, I'm so passionate about, I think that this idea of women fighting for America, because the big demographic shift that has occurred in this country, where women they're involved in the communities, they're involved in the families, they're breadwinners, they're business operators, they're teachers, they're the very fabric of our society. And in many cases, they may be at home alone with children, right? Because we've had a breakup of our family over the last 20 to 30 years. Right. So that's part of our problem.
Yeah.
So, and I would say bluntly that, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm on a roll.
No, General, believe me, you're more important than me. Continue on and I'll have a follow-up.
Well, I want your listeners to understand what I'm talking about when I say, I am taking a hard study, and I'm going to do the research, and I'm going to get much smarter on this, and I'm going to focus on it. But what I call women for America, or women in this country, because I've watched this unfold a bit with Donald Trump, where you had all these different groups that came together to support him. But what they didn't do well was they didn't organize themselves well, and they were these little groups all over the country. Yeah. And I think that they exist. In fact, I know they exist. And I know some of them who are, so I'm taking this particular, it may seem narrow to some, but this is a large population. One of the things that people don't know is when you study the voting categories of different demographics, who votes the most, who votes the least, who shows up on local politics, who shows up on only at federal politics when there's elections and such. The numbers are really funny. I'm going to get smarter about all that, because the one thing that I do know in the conversations that I've had is we have an extraordinary population of patients in this country. I do know, and I'm a product of a great mother who was very deeply involved in local politics and state politics to a degree. And I have 4 surviving sisters, and I will just tell you that all of them are tough in their own ways. And we don't really care about Republicans and Democrats or libertarians. What we care about is common sense and American patriotism. And we care about what is best for this country, what is best for our families, right? What is best for each other. And we do hold faith in high regard. I mean, we are faithful people. We're not going to tell you to preach or how to you should be part of, but I will tell you that that God matters a lot in our family, and the prayers that we have received through millions of people over the last 4 years, that message has gotten to us loud and clear. And I always like to talk about Psalm 23, because Psalm 23 talks about the shadow is in this deep darkly that you walk through in life sometimes. And yea, that you walk through that valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because you are with me, right? Thou art with me. And God has been by my side for whatever reason. And so now I'm into the world of what I say, Isaiah 6:8, which is, whom shall I send? Send me. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I cannot give up, because that's my life. I'm going to live this one life, and I'm going to live it to the fullest.
Excellent. Excellent. Well said, General. Obviously, I think all of us, that resonates with all of us. A year ago, I was an executive in the human resource, world in corporate America. And now, after what I've seen the country go through, especially with regards to you and President Trump, having been furloughed due to the COVID, debacle, I started this show because I felt like I had to do something. And it's good to hear you encouraging people at whatever level to become involved. So we all appreciate that. I do have some specific questions that came from our audience. I'd like to do a quick fire round with you, and then we'll talk more casually.
Okay.
First of all, there's a lot of people out there that look to you for a sign of hope that things may continue as they were prior to, as I call him, Administrator Biden showing up on the scene. I'm just going to ask you some questions, and I want you to just tell me if it's nonsense or if there was anything to it at all. Number one, did President Trump ever sign into action the Insurrection Act?
No. Nonsense.
Nonsense. Is the United States military running the country or just is that nonsense as well?
More nonsense.
Good to hear.
More nonsense. There's no plan. There's so many people out there. Is the plan happening? We have what we have, and we have to accept the situation as it is. But now we have something about it. So I'll get into more questions.
Okay. I want to talk about your opinion about Russia and China. Newsmax reported the other day that STRATCOM Commander Admiral Charles Richards said that there may be a possibility of nuclear war if these two countries, view us or as a viable threat in regards to our relationship with them. What do you make of that? What's your take on Russia, China, and how serious the Admiral's concern is? And what do you think we can do about that?
Well, so that's a big question, and it would take an entire show to talk about the details of that, which I know intimately about. I would tell you that in general, just big picture, Russia and China have come to two of the largest agreements in the history of the world between two large nation states. And the first is an economic relationship that they have formally signed a few years back. And the second is military to military relationship that they signed years ago. And what we have to do is we have to pay very close attention to that. Now, does this general that has talked about this have special intelligence? Maybe he does. I don't know. What I would say is that I think that warnings like that from our political leaders, because a warning like that from a military leader is a very big warning. Very big warning. Is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. Is it something that these other two nations that you mentioned, Russia and China, want to have happen? Absolutely not. We have a very, very awesome counter capability, let's just say, to be able to that's not the type of warfare that either of those countries needs to leverage against the United States of America, as we have recently seen with China and Russia in our election process. So we all know, and because we've been doing this, we get involved in foreign elections all the time. Who's kidding who? Yeah. So the information war, and anybody that studies Chinese doctrine I have studied that, and I've studied Russian military doctrine. Anybody that studies their doctrine, the last thing that they want to do is go to what I call go to the gate. They want to walk up to the point where they leverage every other aspect of quote unquote warfare, principally the idea of economic and information warfare, before we have to go to the gates and actually go toe to toe. And so what I would just say to that big question is, let's let cool heads prevail here, and let's watch and observe the actions of our adversaries around the world. And let's make sure, instead of our military being focused on, which bathroom to use, our military ought to be focused on having a trained and ready and capable military force to fight and win the nation's wars. That's why we have a military. We don't have a military for social experimentation. We have a military to fight and win, not just fight and participate in, but fight and win our nation's wars.
Have you had any conversations with President Trump lately, last few weeks or so?
The last time I had a conversation with President Trump would have been for the 6th of January. I do understand that he is doing fine. I have had conversations with people around him, and I understand he's doing fine. Obviously, he's working through the legal machinations of this impeachment, nonsense impeachment thing that's going on. I mean, it's funny. I guess we still should call him Mr. President because you can only impeach a sitting president. So yes, he must be still be Mr. President to some Congress, I guess. A little bit tongue in cheek, Doug, but you know what? Yep. It's very serious. It's very real. Why would they want to impeach a former president? It's actually unconstitutional.
I think it's, I mean, I don't need to tell you this. It's because they have a catastrophic fear of President Trump, what he is capable of doing and how he is capable of absolutely turning their political world upside down. So they don't want him to run again. That's right. I mean, Donald J. Trump, he still has influence, mega influence over the mega movement in this country. And I believe, because a lot of people have come to me and they want to hear from him. And I think that we will hear from him. I will hear from Donald soon enough once he gets past this stage that he's having to deal with, because it's really ugly. And our new left in this country, this new party, whatever you want to call it, is they're going to take it at him. And that's a shame, because all they're doing is they're dividing the country. And they're bringing more people to Donald Trump than they think. I mean, what they think is people are going to actually go to their side. And I know they don't care really what happened, but what's happening is more and more people are actually turning toward the MAGA movement and going, oh my God, this is not what I voted for. People did not vote on the Democratic for the nonsense that we're seeing coming out of our current government right now. And they're saying, wow, what's going on here? So I do believe that former President Donald J. Trump is going to come back out here soon enough. And he's going to be an advocate for the people that want to run, who are fighters, not the political class, Doug, but who are willing to stand up and fight for this country and fight for the patriotic values and ideals that we have in our Constitution. I see your NRA baseball cap on the back yes,
bookshelf you got there.
Yes,
I mean, it's important because we're talking about our amendments. We're talking about our Bill of Rights being taken. We're talking look at the censorship, right? Freedom of speech, freedom to bear arms, right to bear arms. I mean, these are people that are going to in our government right now, quote unquote, they come after these rights that we have, that I and millions of others before me stood on at the gates for this country to protect. And we have to understand that people in this country have to get involved. And I'm going to keep saying that to you, Doug.
We need to hear it. A couple of things. President Trump, you're right. We do want to hear from President Trump. And I can only hope that because you are on this show that maybe President Trump will see this, but we are desperate to hear from him. We love the guy. All of this, and I want to get your opinion on this. And I have said this on my show. I firmly believe that Donald J. Trump was called by God, answered the call, was president at this time in our republic's history because of the divine providence of God. And I think that Trump has effectively fulfilled the meaning of life by impacting us all, not just in America, but around the world in a positive way, therefore fulfilling the meaning of life for millions, billions of people around the world. What do you think about that, sir? Do you think that, isn't it amazing? I'm not sure I can imagine any other human being that could put up with and survive what that man went through. And you too, sir, for that matter.
Yeah, I feel his pain.
Yeah.
Let me just talk about it like this, because I think that what you're point is super, super important. And I think people in this country and around the world need to hear this kind of a message. What we have to remember, and I do believe that there is this idea of divine intervention, and God has blessed this country as the beacon of hope, as the shining city on the hill, as the true North Star for the rest of the world to follow. And Donald Trump came into our lives at the right time, and he exposed a whole range of things that we all felt, we all kind of knew, but he really brought it out. And now we know, and now we see. And now we're in this moment in our country. The one thing that I would tell your audience, and I think it's the right message. Donald Trump is a human being. He is not divine being.
Right.
And so human beings are not immortal, right? They are mortal, and they're imperfect. And so what I would just offer that is that Donald Trump gave us his best shot. I don't think he's done, but I don't know where he's going to go. But I would say that the difficulty that everybody has witnessed is how one man can only do so much. And what he's done, what Donald Trump has done in this sort of divine way, is he has shown us a path. And that path now is something that we have to be willing to stand up and do. And we have to stand up and fight for this country in ways that we have not had to do in a long time. And I mean direct participation at the local, community, state, and in some cases federal level. I love these governors who are standing up and exercising their authority and their power as governors to say to the federal government, we have states' rights too. Every state in this country, most people don't even know it. Right. Every state in this country has its own constitution.
Yep. So
we have got to understand what our country is about. And our country is about freedom. It's about fairness. And I would also add, is about humility. As Americans, we can never stop being humble. We're the most giving, we're the most giving country on the planet. And that's because people have faith in something more than you can put your finger on. And Donald Trump has given us a little bit of that. As imperfect as he is, and he's only a man. That's what people have to understand.
Well heard, well met indeed. To go back to one of your earlier points, and with regards to Trump and what he might mean for us or to us in the future, he's already come out and said no third party. He thinks that's a bad idea. There's lots of patriots out there that are, calling for the Patriot Party, the MAGA Party. My take on this, first of all, I agree with President Trump. I think a third party would be devastating and just give more victories to the commie socialists, as I call them. But the Republican Party has a problem with weaklings and rhinos and people that don't stand up and put up the good fight. The commie socialists do that very well. They circle their wagons around every one of their members. And I'm not convinced that, during President Trump's term in office, it seemed like there were too many people, even within his inner circle, that weren't loyal to him. Is that a problem?
That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. These disloyal politicos who hang around Washington, D.C. for the money and the power, and to make sure that they get put on everybody's invite list or whatever's happening in Washington, D.C. I mean, they're so disloyal, and they're disgusting, despicable people. And I would say that one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at, and there's going to have to be people, and I'm going to go around and try to help find some of these people. I'm going to hurt those that want to primary against these rhinos, and we need to get these people out of office. I mean, people always go, well, why don't we have term limits? Well, you can't have. Don't stop talking about term limits because we'd love to have it, but that's an impossible problem because they have to be the ones that pass it. It ain't going to happen. So what we've got to do is we've got to get more fighters into the federal government. And any of these quote unquote rhinos that are out there and and you can name if you want to name a few, but I'm telling you, these are people that are dangerous to this country because all they want is power and they want to stay in power. Anybody that's been in Congress more than 2 terms as a member of the House or certainly 2 terms as a member of the Senate, which is 12 years, they need to go. Yeah. And I don't care whether they're being effective or not. Get the heck out of Dodge and go back and do something else for your state or your local community. I mean, these people that hang around for 25, 30, 40 years, and they nothing, all they do is they accrue wealth and they accrue power. We need to get rid of them.
Well, we had no better role model in the world than our own first president, George Washington, right? He could have been almost a king if he wanted to be, but he walked away, as I think he intended everybody to walk away after a short time. And so I agree with you. I think the rhinos, and I hear, and I get messages all the time from conservatives that are upset. They're almost like they're whining. I guard them, and I remind them, we are not the snowflakes. We are not the side of the snowflakes. We will not whine and have mental breakdowns because our parents gave us participation trophies and that we don't know how to handle adversity. That's not us. To your point, what you're talking about, as I hear it, is the determined patriotism that I mentioned earlier, doing the hard work, primarying these rhinos out. And you're right, the Mitt Romneys, the Ben Sasses of the world, they need to go. Mitch McConnell, I'm not impressed with the guy, disloyal, in it for himself. I just think we need to do that, exactly. The hard work of getting them out.
So, you mentioned about other parties. I am also not one of these, let's create another party. I mean, like the Constitutionalist Party is in 17 states, as an example. I mean, it's not easy to do that. So let's take what exists. Let's take our 2-party system and let's work the system that we have. Let's pick good people at the state level who are running the parties at the state level, right? Let's go out and let's participate in that. Get involved. Put some demands on these people. Not a matter of, I'm not going to go vote because I don't like this person. No, go put some demands on them. And you know what? And I'll add one more point, and I'll say it on this show. And I don't think it's the first time I've said it, other than to small audiences or people that I've met recently. I personally, I wouldn't give another dollar to the Republican National Committee, not 1 red cent. And the reason why is because I don't know what's happening with that money. And I'll tell you what, it goes to the political class. I'm done with the political class in this country. If I give money, if I give $1 to somebody like people gave to me, people gave me money to fight my legal defense because they saw something in me that they liked, or they trusted, or they felt they saw something in themselves that they saw in me. I appreciate that. I'm going to go around. I'm going to thank people for that, and I'll thank them on this show as well. But I would not penny to anybody unless I've heard them or watched them and saw what they actually believe in and what has their life. Has their life been of service? Has their life been of commitment to others? Has their life been about their family, about their community, about their service to this country? Then I'll start to think about whether or not I give them you get a lot of there. They just dump big checks on the Republican National Committee and nobody knows where it goes. Well, I'll tell you what, Republican National Committee did nothing. As far as I'm concerned, they did nothing for this president. And I may be being really harsh, but I would like Ronna McDaniel, who's running our Republican National Party right now, to tell us, and she'll give you a laundry list of, we spent this money here, we spent baloney. They said nothing about the last election process that we had. What they did, the Republican National Committee had a big old meeting down in Amelia Island, Florida, the 6th, 7th, and 8th of January, while the president was up going through all this nonsense up in Washington, D.C. They're down in Florida with about 140 of the top leaders, and they're listening to all these people that they're going to run for president. That's what was happening the 6th through the 8th. That's what they were spending their money on in this nice plush place. Hey, forget it. Now you got me on a roll, Doug. And I'm telling you,
General,
this is not about Democrats. This is not about Democrats. It's not about Republicans. It's about common sense Americanism. And Americanism is patriotism. And we have got to fight this socialist ideology that's just pouring into our government in Washington, D.C.
I love the passion. I love it, and you have carte blanche to go off on any on any amount of passion that you want to. But you're right, Ronna McDaniel, and the committee came out the other day, last week, and said that if Trump were to run again, they're not going to necessarily automatically endorse the guy. I mean, it's stabbing in the back. Yeah. On
they
the
didn't
other
stab him in the back. They didn't stab him in the back. They stabbed him right to the heart. Right in front of him.
Yeah.
Oh, and I feel for the guy because, like I said, everybody talked about divine intervention. I mean, he's a man, and so and he made decisions, and I don't know why. One of these days I'll have that intimate conversation with him. I pray that I am able to do that because I want to understand, how do we move forward? That's what I want to understand. Because I know in my institution, I had to make some monumental decisions early on and then later on. And those monumental decisions, unless you've lived in my shoes, like people are trying to tell Donald Trump what to do, I don't live in his shoes. People didn't live in my shoes. I know I had made those decisions. I'll tell that story someday. But I will tell you that we can't judge people for those kinds of things. I want to judge a person for their entire life.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for as we go forward, are people who are just good Americans who want this country to be better than what our parents left us, right?
Right. Agreed. I know that I promised you a 30. Our time is quickly. We can, and again, gosh, we could go on for hours. I want to just segue into a couple of people who, in my view at least, are in the upper echelon of patriotism, much like yourself, and get your take on what they might be up to and the impact that they had during this past election cycle. The first of which I can't go without mentioning and just calling out Rudy Giuliani, who is not only America's mayor, but probably the world's mayor at this point. I admire the guy. Is he, to the best of your knowledge, is he continuing to work on the issues surrounding the election?
Yeah, Rudy, I thought did some great work. I mean, even in the 2016 campaign, going that far back was really when our paths crossed. He's a terrific guy. He is an individual who is always willing to step up to the plate. The president, has a lot of faith in him. I will say that I had my differences of opinion on the strategy that they took. I'll leave it at that for the legal strategy, but I'm not a lawyer. I probably should have an honorary law degree because of all the nonsense that I went through. But I would say that Rudy is a great patriot. He's a great American. And he still has a lot to offer to us, as well as to the country, but to the president as well. And I know that the president still maintains an affinity for him.
And the other guy that comes to mind, Mike Pompeo. As a Kansan myself, I got to call Mike out. I just think that he appears to have been at least one of the most loyal to the president. Yep. Yeah.
Mike Pompeo is another terrific guy, a very, very bright guy. And I think now what Mike has allowed himself through his service to America better prepared to do, he's a real shot at being looked at hard by the American people to be a president of this country because of his time in Congress, his time in government in the executive branch, both running the intelligence community from the CIA seat, and then of course the State Department and running our foreign policy. Mike is loyal to the president. I thought he was very strong as he departed the State Department with some very strong comments about what was going on around the world. I will say that what Mike needs to make sure that he does, and I hope he listens to this, Mike needs to make sure that he understands that to not be defined as a political class, but as a common sense guy, as an American patriot. And Mike is a down-to-earth type person. I think he uses good common sense. There's a reason why they went after me, big time. But I think that's what Mike needs to do, and be careful or cautious not to be defined as a typical Washington, D.C., political guy.
General Flynn, were you ever asked, and I don't, if this is a confidence that you don't want to talk about, I completely understand. Did President Trump ever approach you about being Secretary of State or Vice President or any high-ranking official within a potential next chapter in his political life?
Not in the next chapter, but in the previous chapter, certainly did.
Yes.
And we talked about that early on in the 2016 campaign.
Yep.
But not going forward. I think he's still deciding on what role he wants to perform, and we're going to have to listen to him. We need to listen to him. He's got us to this level. He's woken this country up like it's never been awake. And the left needs to understand that. The socialist movement in this country, and Washington, D.C. primarily, needs to understand. Maybe, the socialist movement out in California, because the two biggest problems, like I've always said, have been Hollywood and Washington, D.C. So, I get attacked that. Like my mother used to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I've been called every name in the book. I've been accused of everything. And, I'm sitting here with you, Doug, having a great conversation. And so, I think we have to wait and watch and listen, but we have to act. We have to start getting involved. And that's going to be my big message.
Good message.
Involved within your communities.
So I made a bet with a high school friend of mine. His name is Stan, that Trump would win the presidency. Bottle of wine. I guess I need to pay up that bet, because President Biden is there, isn't he? He is the one, and we have to come to grips with that. We want to hear it from you, General Flynn.
It depends how you define. Yeah, well, I mean, here I would say, I'd say hold that bottle of wine. Hold on to that bottle of wine. I would not concede that bottle of wine. That's Mike Flynn.
Okay.
I would not concede that bottle of wine. But I'll leave it at that. And
awesome.
I certainly, when you go to uncork it one of these days, maybe I'll come and join you for a glass.
I would love that. Yeah, you're invited anytime. General Flynn, I have to also ask you this weekend. Are you a Brady guy, or are you like the new young Patrick Mahomes? Because my team, and I've got to give a shout out.
No. I'm Brady.
Oh no!
Oh, I don't care. Yeah, too bad for you. Too bad.
Well,
too bad for you. No, you know what? I used to like with the Chiefs. I used to like Lenny Dawson. As a kid,
yeah.
but I've always been a New England fan of every Formula One team. I'm from the state of Rhode Island. I'm a big, from the Bruins to the Celtics to the Red Sox to the Patriots. I love them all. Celtics. Oh my God. So. I've seen them all play. Bobby Orr, Larry Bird. I've seen all the greats play
wonderful.
As a kid primarily, and I've stayed as a big New England fan. I thought he was being disloyal when he jumped ship and went down to Tampa. But this weekend I'll be rooting for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers.
Okay, fair enough, General. One of my good friends, it's a former retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, Ron Kanoy. Ron will love to hear that. He's with you on that one. General Flynn, I can't begin to thank you enough for this. All of the prayers in the world to you and your family for what you've had to endure. You're going to see millions of people, I think, watch this program that are still in your corner, who have longed to hear from you. And I know that, part of the message isn't what they want to hear, but as I've tried to remind them, determined prayer and determined patriotism, we will get there together. And I think that you give, as usual, sound advice. Get involved at the local level. We have to deal with what our current reality is. There is no secret plan to come in with buses and arrest everybody and take them out. We need to act instead with determined patriotism going forward, with primaries against rhinos and dealing with and curbing the tide of this commu-socialist trend that we're seeing in this country. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep. That's a very fair assessment. And what I would say to sort of end is to say that, and I'd like to come back and talk to you and your audience more. I think, Doug, you're the future of America. And
thank you,
because of your message about prayer and about patriotism. And I would say that America's future is very bright as long as we continue to combine those two aspects of our lives as American patriots. It's really super important. So thank you very much for all you're doing with your message to your audience. And I know your audience is going to continue to grow, because the message that you do profess. All of us believe in. So thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, General. That means the world to us. That's an honor and a blessing to hear you say that. I'm humbled, and I truly thank you for that. Would you hang on once we wrap up here? Would you hang on the line just for one brief moment, sir?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Doug Billings on the right side with General Michael Flynn. It's been an honor and a privilege, or a highlight really, of the show to have him on with us. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel, follow us on all of the podcast platforms. We're out there on all of them. And we make sure that we'll get this message out. God bless you. God bless America. God bless the world and everyone in it. We'll meet again right here on the right side with Doug Billings. Cheers.